folks, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In this video, we will be discussing constitutional bodies and their recent controversies from your mains perspective. This video is brought to you by your faculty Sushma KP. Let's get into the video wherein we will be analyzing what are the controversies associated with a particular constitutional body, why this particular controversy has come into the issue. At the same point of time, we will also be discussing what can be done for that, that is, what are the reforms for it. We will also see wherever applicable what are your Supreme Court guidelines on that particular body ka controversy. Alright, let's get the video started. First of all, before delving in, we have taken a holistic topic as constitutional body. What will mean a constitutional body, or otherwise, let's say your election commission, UPSC, all of these, your CAG, all of these are considered as constitutional bodies. What is, they all have different set of roles. What is one or few of those features that are similar to all of the constitutional bodies? First and foremost, they are independent bodies, which means they do not derive authority or they are not under or subordinate to any executive bodies. Understanding? And their roles are specifically defined in the constitution. Election commission, this is what it is supposed to do. For example, UPSC, this is what it is supposed to do. Understanding? And it is of permanent nature. The executives cannot keep changing this according to their whim and will. Understanding? And one more thing is they have specific articles. When you tell something is a constitutional bodies, they have specific articles which will specify their roles, which will also make sure they are deriving the power from the constitution as its authority. And there are certain provisions where you can't change the conditions of this particular officers or body after they are into job. That is, you cannot change it to their disadvantage. And because of its independent nature, you are giving a high profile importance for what? So as to of the important role that they play in the society. For example, election commission is to conduct free and fair elections in the country. Your judiciary, according to its basic structure of doctrine, holds that free and fair elections is a basic structure. If you violate that, then it is like you are removing the democratic principles. So whatever we are calling as these constitutional bodies, they perform those vital, important, basic structure. Understanding their functionalities are that important. Okay, so these are the commonalities that are associated with all the constitutional bodies. Now we will see what are the list of major constitutional bodies as to what articles they are have been enlisted in your constitution. First is your Election Commission of India, whose role is to conduct free and fair elections. It's enumerated under Article 324. Then is your UPSC, which recruits for your civil service examination, and it is also called as the watchdog of merit system, so as to make sure meritocracy triumphs. We have State Public Service Commission. We have Finance Commission, which is what keeps your fiscal federalism running. Then we have Comptroller and Auditor General, who audits for the government, and more of when we say audits, he is considered as the, or he or she, the body of CAG is considered where we have the place where your parliament holds the executive financially accountable. Understanding? Accountability, the whole point of picking a parliamentary system over presidential system is accountability, responsibility over stability. Now when we say accountability, responsibility, one of those things are fulfilled by your role or work done by your CAG or Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Then we have Attorney General of India, who is the legal advisor to your Government of India. Then we have Advocate General of a state, who is the legal advisor of a state. They more contribute to your executive side, your Attorney General and your Advocate General. Then we have National Commission for SC to protect your scheduled caste interest. And then we have National Commission for ST to protect your ST scheduled tribes interest. Initially, there was only one body for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, which was bifurcated into two. That is, one is specifically for SC, your scheduled caste, and another is for your ST, that is scheduled tribes. Then we have Special Officer for Linguistic Minorities to protect your linguistic minorities. Then we have Goods and Service Taxes Council, that is for your GST structure. Now, look at this. What are the characteristics of constitutional bodies? First thing is, they have a fixed tenure. Usually all of the bodies that we spoke about has a fixed tenure, is usually appointed by the President of India. They have constitutional safeguards, meaning anything cannot be altered to their disadvantage after they have started their term or work, so as to make sure that the office remains free, independent, and not be under any executive control. It is not subordinate to executive. That is why we use the term independent, because they are not deriving the power from any executive authorities. It is not a statutory body nor an executive body, but a constitutional body. The powers are directly derived from constitution. They are of independent functioning. Understanding? Now, what are the recent controversies? Now we will see step by step, that is with respect to each body, constitutional body, we will see what were the recent controversies behind it and what are the ways to reform it. First thing is your Election Commission of India. Let's see what are the controversies first they are there with respect to your Election Commission of India. First is in the appointment mechanism. Second is electoral integrity. Third is model code of conduct. Fourth is voter turnout data delay, and fifth is electoral bond secrecy. Now let's address these issues. Now let's take up the first one, appointment mechanism. In 2022, the appointment of a chief election commissioner he was promoted, which led to a vacancy. So what happened, the government was it took a lot of time in filling that vacancy. What happened, this raised eyebrows. Why? Because again, this brought in the issue as to the mode of appointment looked like it was being under your executive control. What do I mean by the mode of control is being under your executive control? See, first and foremost, your judiciary opinion that the selection and election of your chief election commissioner is supposed to be on the way or according to the laws made by the parliament. But there was no such laws made by parliament. So what happened? There was the common principle of your, let's say, selection committee, which involved the prime minister, cabinet minister, leader of opposition, and all of those big selection committees. But what happened was, past a decade, from the political front of view, there was no leader of opposition. So what they started doing, they appointed the people who they liked, or executive appointing. It almost looked like the executive had free will to appoint anyone, and especially for election commission, which is to conduct free and fair elections for the country. So this is where your judiciary intervened and told that judiciary was of the opinion that for the selection of chief election commissioner and election commissioner has to be done according to the laws made by the parliament. But there were no such laws made. So what your judiciary told was, up until an act comes into place, the selection of chief election commissioner or election commissioners will be based on a committee. That committee will comprise of your prime minister, chief justice of India, and leader of opposition. This is what your judiciary told. This is to be functioning up until a law is brought into the picture. Now what happened? Immediately your bill was passed. The bill was passed for your selection or appointment of your chief election commissioner and election commissioners, where the selecting committee will include prime minister, cabinet minister and leader of opposition, which particularly removed Chief Justice of India. This was done in your 2022 Act. Even here the concerns were that in the three members, Prime Minister, Cabinet Minister and Leader of Opposition, the majority votes are towards your executive only, or that is your Prime Minister only, Prime Minister and Cabinet Minister. So this is not contributing to the actual selection committee. This is what they have been holding. Look at this. Your judiciary, Supreme Court in Anup Baranwal versus Union of India case held that appointments of Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioner must be done via collegium, that is a selection committee comprising of Prime Minister, Chief Justice of India and Leader of Opposition. This marked the end of executive monopoly because earlier they were the ones who were only doing. Then finally a bill was passed which said that no, we will remove Chief Justice of India and add Cabinet Minister in there. Okay. Now let's address the second question, which is about your voter turnout delay. The data which is being delayed and sent very lately. Now they have started, okay, let's say now they've started integrating technology at state level, where instantly the data is given within 72 hours. They've started very small, on a small scale. Now they are thinking of integrating, okay, this is still thinking of integrating of your AI, technology driven, cloud computing, so as to give, usually the delay is of some days to weeks. But if they integrate technology, AI, cloud computing, it can be reduced to as soon as within 72 hours. Another question is your electoral bond secrecy. With respect to electoral bonds, when this was introduced, wherein the donor who can contribute, his identity is kept secret. This was voiced out, this raised as a concern and voiced out by both RBI as well as your judiciary. A, it is non-transparent. B, it can also lead to your corny capitalism. This can also lead to money which can be bought in without knowing the source of the transaction. It could also be a front for money laundering. So electoral bonds was voiced out the concerns by both your RBI as well as your judiciary. The concerns that were again raised with respect to your election commission was its silence on some of the hate speech violations, and another thing is delay in releasing voter turnout data, understanding, and with respect to your electoral bonds and transparency deficiency. So as a result to your appointment of your chief election commissioner, the act that was passed was Chief Election Commissioner and Other Election Commissioners Appointment Conditions of Service and Term of Office Act 2023, which replaced the collegium, which was earlier Prime Minister, Chief Justice of India, Leader of Opposition, with Prime Minister, Cabinet Minister and Leader of Opposition. Understanding? The next constitutional body we will be looking into is your Finance Commission. Have a look at this. See, earlier Planning Commission was playing a very large role in devolution of funds. But with the abolition of Planning Commission, more power went to your Finance Commission, which is an independent body but not a permanent body. That is, it is constituted at the end of every 5 years. Now, one issue with the Finance Commission that people have pointed out is that your southern states, see, recently we are in the 15th Finance Commission. What happened was 15th Finance Commission did something wherein it used the data of 2011 census. Understanding? It used the data of 2011 census wherein it tried to delve out funds based on the population. Understanding? 15th Finance Commission used 2011 census, and at the same point of time it had recommended devolution of funds based on your population. This raised concerns from the southern states, especially like your Tamil Nadu and Kerala, who worked very hard to bring the population in control. So now what these states voiced out was, you are punishing the states for implementing population control. First thing. Second thing is, your northern states such as your UP, Bihar, etc., they have higher population but low contribution to the per capita development. Now, on both fronts, if you see the southern states, they brought their population also under check and they are high contributing to the development per capita. They are voicing out that this means that the southern states are unnecessarily and unequally made to suffer for following the guidelines. And another thing of their concern is, now delimitation commission is also going to come, which will affect the vote share. Next, 16th Finance Commission is also going to come. Then based on those data, which would mean that southern states might end up a smaller chunk of share for religiously following the mandate of development protocol. Now this has brought in the issue for your southern states, and that is why there is a delay in the formation of 16th Finance Commission. Another thing is, this has highlighted and also created friction between the fiscal federalism between the center and states, which affects the fiscal or financial autonomy of some states to a very larger extent. The next constitutional body we will be discussing is about your Comptroller and Auditor General of India. The issue in here that is coming largely is delay in the audit reports and also limited access to private sector using public funds. Again, if you see with respect to CAG audits, they are underutilized in your parliament. The whole point when we spoke about your CAG was, this is one of the ways through which your parliament holds the executive or government accountable. But there is underutilization of CAG findings in your parliamentary committees. Now we can think about what has led to, what exactly are people underutilizing, what is so big about CAG findings. See, your CAG findings report was the one which helped us report and expose your 2G spectrum scam. Your CAG interest was the one that led to cancellation of 122 telecom licenses. Understanding? So, your CAG report, the whole point of CAG report is having the ability to fiscally hold the government accountable is getting washed away. Understanding? And there is also a huge amount of delay in publishing audit reports for flagship schemes. Understanding? This has created huge new controversy as to this is affecting the transparency. Understanding? This makes us question about the constitutional body's transparency. The next constitutional body we will be discussing about is your Union Public Service Commission, otherwise UPSC. Look at this. One of the main things about your UPSC is, like I mentioned, it is called as the watchdog of merit system. When you call something as watchdog of merit system, which means meritorious candidates have to be given the place. But if you see the controversies associated with it, constantly there is urban-rural divide. There is a huge advantage for your English medium versus regional language. And also there is your representation backlog seen in certain sections. Understanding? At the same point of time, one of the major concerns is transparency in evaluation in mains exam, and also with respect to your interviewer personality test, they have been wanting it to be in a more transparent manner. And one important aspect is there is no grievance redressal in the final marks. Understanding? Also there is an issue with the equal opportunity with certain sections not being represented, wherein from your regionally backward states. And also there is a huge delay in the final results, which is taking a very large and long time. Another thing is students have been demanding transparency into a larger scale and also wanting to accommodate the interest of students from all the sections. That is where we mentioned urban rural divide. Your English language students are having more advantage over your again with respect to your backward region. Also again there is a dominance of your coaching industry. There is a large only source of your let's say UPSC preparation is dependent and dominant on that. More of rote learning is encouraged, that is mere mugging up. Another thing is one exam is selecting for various posts such as IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS. But if you see, the skill set of all these are very different, and yet only one exam is hiring them. Next is your National Commission for Scheduled Castes. Here again, ineffective implementation, funding powers, political appointments. Yes, these are all the usual things that we have been seeing from before. But what now is the concern is, despite a dedicated body being present, it could not and it is not able to reduce the ongoing cases, harassment, more of the targeted violence that is done. This is still remaining to continue. This starts questioning how effective is this body working. Lack of concrete outcomes in atrocity prevention, and also political appointees are undermining impartiality more towards leaning on the government side. And also recommendations are often ignored by the ministries because all the recommendations given by them are not binding on the government and they are merely recommendatory in nature. Next is your Attorney General of India. Attorney General of India is more of considered as the legal counsel for your government of India. They represent the government of India. But here where the issue is coming is the legal independence. See, Attorney General, if you're telling, he has to be someone qualified to be a judge of Supreme Court. But if you see with respect to Attorney General of India, they are more towards the executive control, or they are part of the executive, which makes them to be loyal towards executive. And many a times in many cases they have defended the government without constitutional backing. Understanding there is most of the times conflict of interest also because they are not banned to private practice. At times it is even from the opposite side that we see. Attorney General often defending the government policy leading to perceived lack of autonomy. Why? Again, because they are coming directly under your executive. For example, when your Attorney General was defending your Constitutional Amendment Act and your farm law bills, this drew huge criticism as to how autonomous exactly is this body. So, with respect to certain judicial outcomes reviews, if you see on your constitutional bodies, in A.K. Roy versus Union of India case 1982, they emphasized on the functioning of the independence of constitutional body, the true independence of constitutional body. Why? Because they have to not be swayed by power or position of the executive. In SP Gupta versus Union of India case 1985, also stress was made for autonomy of constitutional officers to be preserved under the rule of law. Understanding? In TN Session versus Union of India case also, it said that to strengthen the role and power and position of your Election Commission of India to safeguard your democracy. What are the constant issues? So we said there are certain set of features which are common for constitutional body. Then what are certain set of challenges which are again more of same to your constitutional bodies? Executive overreach. Understanding, in all of these we saw executive overreach, politicization, delay in appointments, lack of structural reforms, and largely it is also your budgetary constraints. Understanding? What are the examples? Like we discussed, delay in appointment of new chief election commissioner, and Supreme Court criticism of your non-functional linguistic minority officer. So much so that, see, let me tell you, with respect to delay in the appointment, Supreme Court quoted that if your election commission is not given the power, autonomy, and independence, it is almost equivalent to being a toothless. Understanding? What are the recommendations or reforms that are needed for this constitutional bodies? Look at this. First and foremost, we said that the issue was coming from executive overreach. How do you try to avoid that? First thing is, bring a collegium type of selection committee which will not have your executive overnumbering, or your majority is not held by your executive. Second thing is parliamentary oversight on these issues to keep the government accountable. Independent funding, because previously we said budgetary constraints is also very large. At the end of the day, these people are paid by them. Another thing is accountability mechanisms, and main aspect of constitutional body should be transparency. Now, what are certain committees which have spoken for strengthening of your constitutional body? Second ARC report speaks of ensuring independence to the constitutional bodies. Law Commission report speaks about appointment reforms for your Election Commission of India, Comptroller Auditor General. National Commission to review the working of the Constitution also has spoke on defining the more of independence of watchdog institutions, that is watchdog of meritoriousness, okay, and also bulwarks of the Constitution, whatever we call. That is your, who do we call as your bulwarks? The Supreme Court, High Court, Election Commission, UPSC. Understanding? How can we go ahead with this? How can we bring about these reforms? First thing is strengthen checks and balances system. Do not allow either parliament or executive or judiciary to get the overreach position. Second, ensure non-partisan functioning, that is bring in the collegium sort of system. Legislate appointment processes so as to avoid your executive overreach. Promote transparency and empower these constitutional body with adequate funding and staff, money and personnel. Previous year mains question on these constitutional bodies and controversy. Look at this. Election Commission of India has become a toothless body. Why? Again, lack of independence, your delay in the appointment process, your executive overreach. Understanding? Critically analyze in light of recent controversies. This was 2022 mains question. Now let's see what possible questions might come from this. The independence of constitutional bodies is fundamental to India's democratic architecture. Define with examples, okay, where the same things that we spoke about can be the answer to all of these. Critically evaluate the role of CAGs is ensuring financial accountability of India. Here is where you will bring parliamentary committee and how he is the friend, guide, philosopher, and directly comes in so as to Parliament can hold the executive accountable. Discuss the relevance and challenges faced by Finance Commission in India's cooperative federalism. You will bring in about your 14th Finance Commission, devolution of funds, 15th Finance Commission using 2011 census, 16th Finance Commission contribution, it is more of taking too much delay. What input will they use? How will it affect the southern states? Understanding? Evaluate the appointment process of election commissioners in light of recent legislation. That is, you will mention your act, you will mention how your executive is overpowering there, they removed the CGI from the list. Understanding? These are the possible questions. With this, we've reached the end of the content. If you like our content, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share it along with your friends. Thank you.